When it comes to comic books, it seems like everybody is immortal. The heroes on this list have faced their demise almost more times than we can count. Well, at least a good number of them did. We've got a pretty good record of the KDR for the rest. My name is AJ with Nerd, and these are the top 10 superheroes who died the most in canon, because covering the multiverse would take all freaking day. At number 10 is Superman, who died 5 times. Superman has had quite the journey, even facing the ultimate fate multiple times. Once an alien named Zuniel zapped him with a deadly kryptonite ray, but an android sacrificed itself to bring him back. Another time, Clark got hypnotized by Dr. Light, tricked into offing Superman, but Batman worked his magic to revive him somehow. In a Justice League of America story, Count Crystal did the dirty work, sending Supes to the afterlife. The League had to dive into the world of the undead, guarded by Phantom Stranger to resurrect him. Remember the big death of Superman event that happened in '92? That one happened as well. And then in the Obsidian Age story, Superman bit the dust once more. But there's even more! In the New 52, Superman met his end recently, although we're not even sure if it's the same character, so let's put a pin on that one for now. So yeah, Supes has danced with death quite a few times, making his heroic return each time, much to everybody's relief. At number 9 is Wonderman, who died 6 times. Could you imagine making your grand entrance into a comic book and then boom, you're pretty much gone in an instant? Basically what happened to him in his debut in Avengers number 9. Here's what happened. He was secretly a baddie working for the Masters of Evil, but as the story unfolded, he had a change of heart and sacrificed himself to save the day, turning from villain to hero in one fell swoop. But death wasn't quite done with Wonderman. Revived later, he struggled with a fear of dying, which is kind of weird for 2 reasons. 1, he'd already been through it, so what's all the fuss about? And 2, the fear seriously did not stop him from jumping headfirst into dangerous situations. He even faced death a bunch of times alongside his superhero pals. It went so far that there was a time when his own series suggested that he was just unkillable. But guess what? He still managed to bite the dust in another comic, and you guessed it, returned once more. Scarlet Witch played a game of superhero resurrection multiple times, bringing him back, he'd face some danger, and then poof, he'd be gone again. Rogue also had a hand in his demise by absorbing his energy, but miraculously, he came back once more. The guy's like a phoenix, just rising from the ashes every time. If you're enjoying this video so far, you can support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Top 10 Nerd, and ringing that notification bell. At number 8 is Thor, who died 6 times. First off, Thor's story is tangled up in the event called Ragnarok, which is a cycle where he and all of Asgard meet their maker, but he manages to come back every time like a phoenix from the ashes. He found out that he had already been dead a couple times in Thor number 293. He's been playing this death and revival game for a while now. Despite being one of the toughest cookies in the Marvel universe, he's got quite the list of heroic departures. Like in the Korvac saga, where he made it out alive, but not without a few close calls. Then there's the whole Secret Wars ordeal, and the West Coast Avengers Annual, where Thor met his untimely end. Then in Infinity Gauntlet, he faced off against Thanos. I mean, to be fair, this Thor wasn't exactly a real Thor, but a clone, so this one doesn't really count. See, the real Thor had perished battling Onslaught before Franklin Richards managed to revive everybody from that drama. And then there was the whole other Ragnarok around Avengers Disassembled. This passing was his longest lasting, being gone for 7 years before being brought back. His most recent demise was when fear itself came knocking and Thor took a brief, let's call it nap, before springing back into action. At number 7 is Batman, who also died at least 6 times. Remember that time his heart just stopped? Yeah, his heart took a break and his trusty sidekick Robin had to jump in and bring him back to the brink, even after Bruce was declared legally dead. A similar thing happened later in a shocking incident, pun intended, when the electrocutioner zapped Batman and his heart stopped again, but just like before, and Robin pulled another miraculous move to save his life. And then, in a freaking crazy Brave and the Bold storyline, they claimed that Batman's brain was toast, like he was completely brain dead. Luckily, the Atom, a microscopic superhero, shrunk down and started kicking around Batman's neurons like a mad scientist till Batman was back in business. Then, in the graphic novel Birth of the Demon, Batman and Ra's al Ghul, his nemesis, both bit the dust in that one, but as with any story involving Ra's al Ghul, the Lazarus Pit came to the rescue. Gotta love magical green goop. Now, here's where things get really twisted. In the Emperor Joker saga, the Joker was bestowed crazy, powerful reality warping abilities and decides to use them to eliminate Batman every single day in new and horrific ways before bringing him back to life. And it just keeps going. There was this phase when the whole Justice League faced turmoil as Batman took a dirt nap. dirt nap and miraculously returned during the Obsidian Age storyline. And finally, in Final Crisis, Darkseid seemingly erased Batman from existence, but this one doesn't really count because as it turns out, he was just shot back in time. At number 6 is Wolverine, who died 7 times. For a guy who's basically immortal on account of his healing factor, the dude has still managed to bite the dust on more than a few occasions. In Secret Wars, Wolverine was just going about his superhero business with the X-Men when Dr. Doom decided to wipe them all out. Every last one of those heroes took a dirt nap. But he didn't stay dead. He came back kicking thanks to some comic book magic. Then there was this crystal caper in X-Men Annual when things got real dicey. One by one, Wolverine's buddies bit the dust, leaving him to face a heart-snatching villain all on his ones. It was a brutal scene. He even had his heart ripped out at one point, and a drop of his bodily fluids hit the crystal, and voila, Wolverine gains control of the universe for a hot minute. Love comic books. Remember the Infinity Gauntlet? Yeah, Wolverine ended up on the wrong side of Thanos' wrath with that one, but hold on to your hats because there's a twist. There was this other time when Apocalypse's henchman, Death, supposedly did Wolverine in. Plot twist, it was all smoke and mirrors. Yeah, he didn't actually die. Then Wolverine went back in time not once but twice trying to fix this whole mess. Finally, in 2014, the Death of Wolverine miniseries hit pretty hard as our guy got encased in adamantium after losing his healing powers. At number 5 is the Wasp, who died 7 times. So first up, during this crazy event called the Secret Invasion in Marvel Comics is when things really kicked off for her. There was this intense saga known as the Korvac saga, when she bravely fought alongside the Avengers, but she met her end battling Korvac. And in Secret Wars, that one wasn't a party either, as Wasp got hit by a laser, and believe it or not, she was taken out by Dr. Doom. Then there was the snap in the Infinity Gauntlet, as Wasp was one of the heroes who bit the dust, pun intended, right away when Thanos did his thing. And in another event, Onslaught, she willingly sacrificed herself alongside her teammates. Then in Secret Invasion number 8, a Skrull intimidating Hank Pym turned her into a ticking time bomb, but luckily Thor swooped in, used his hammer to send her into space, and she kaboomed out there. But instead of exploding, she got zapped into the microverse, somehow, where her buddies managed to save her a few years later. At number 4 is Hawkeye, who died 7 times. Hawkeye's got quite a history, clocking in at 7. The poor guy faced the music against Michael Korvac in the Korvac saga. Then he kicked the bucket in Secret Wars, and in the West Coast Avengers Annual number 2, he was part of a team effort to rescue their pals from the realm of death, but not end well for him. Then there was the Infinity Gauntlet, when Hawkeye was among those turned to dust when Thanos did his finger snapping thing. Even during Onslaught, he made the ultimate sacrifice, but his most memorable exit was in Avengers Disassembled, when Scarlet Witch went off the rails and threw a ton of enemies at the Avengers. Hawkeye's arrow went up in flames, and he heroically blew up a Kree ship, knowing he was a goner. Scarlet Witch didn't stop there though, and in House of M, she revived him, but then, in a twisted turn, she offed him again. At number 3 is Spider-Man, who died 8 times. Spider-Man's not just swinging around New York, he's actually swinging between life and death like a pro. Total of 8 times to be exact. First, he perished alongside Hawkeye when Dr. Doom took a swipe at them during Secret Wars, round 1. Then things got real messy when Kulan Gath took over the Big Apple. Then there was the Infinity Gauntlet chaos when our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man was in the mix fighting Thanos tooth and nail. Then comes the infamous Clone Saga. It's the one where things went seriously haywire. First, the owl poisoned him, and then for a hot minute, it looked like it was curtains for Spidey, but then Doc Ock swooped in with the save. Then in the big finale of the Clone Saga, had Peter facing death again as a clone, but he bounced back from that too, proving you can't keep a good hero down. And then comes the more infamous comic, The Other storyline, when Morlun tried to snuff him out and almost succeeded, but then Spidey cocooned up and emerged with brand new powers, which were supposed to be spider-themed, but were absolutely not spider-themed whatsoever. Then there was the wild storyline when a villainess smooched him, turning him into a giant spider. I know, but this all turned out to be a trick, a cocoon trick to be precise. And finally, there was that mind swap with Doc Ock, where Peter was basically a ghost the whole time, but eventually Spider booted Ock out of his body and came back stronger than ever. At number 2 is Captain America, who died a whopping 11 times. Holy sheep. I mean, I guess this is to be expected, seeing as Cap's debut origin story basically revolves around him kicking the bucket and being frozen in ice. I'm not really sure if that one technically counts because he was just chilling in suspended animation. But then there was the whole deal when he faked dying just to get back into his secret identity as Steve Rogers. Cap also faced the music in the Korvac saga, in Secret Wars, in West Coast Avengers Annual number 2, in Infinity Gauntlet, and in Onslaught. Oh, I almost forgot the time he was assassinated on Red Skull's orders during the whole Civil War story arc. Patriotic hero was shot in the back of the neck, which was followed by 3 more shots fired point blank into his stomach. He used his final breath to tell innocent spectators to get to safety, which is pretty sad and bleak, until he was revived after it was revealed that they used a special pew-pew that basically plopped him into space-time, which is probably one of the most convoluted ways I've ever seen a hero be brought back. Oh, and let's not forget the moment when Cap's super soldier serum was running out, making it seem like it was lights out for good. But that was until the Red Skull revived him because, well, Jean needed Cap's help to tackle the Fuhrer, who had a cosmic cube in his control. And last but not least is Jean Grey, who has canonically died no less than 15 freaking times. Jean Grey, the X-Men's resident mind-bender, had a knack for the whole dying and rising routine in comic book land. Before 2004, she didn't exactly have a record for clocking out of life too often, just twice actually. First in the legendary Dark Phoenix saga, where she sacrificed herself to dodge the whole becoming an evil entity deal as the Dark Phoenix. Then in 2004, things went bananas. Wolverine took her out in Grant Morrison's new X-Men storyline, but surprise, surprise, it wasn't curtains for Jean. No, that just stirred up the whole Phoenix Force within her, which revived her. But the killing spree didn't stop there. Magneto got in the action, sending her off again. Then the Phoenix Force had a comeback plan once again, as it aimed to obliterate itself, but instead found its way back to Earth, heading straight for Jean. To weaken his powers, Jean went all strategic, and get this, she asked Wolverine for a favor, which was to keep killing her until the Force got worn out from the whole revival routine. He obliged, slicing and dicing her like a human reset button, but every time she bounced back. After a whole bunch of rounds, Jean wrestled control from the Force and finally said enough. Then she took off in the end to settle in the white hot room, destined to chill there for 150 years, but let's be real, that 150-year rule is more of a suggestion. As always, if there's a superhero who won't stop dying that you think I missed, feel free to let me know down in the comments. This has been AJ with Top 10 Nerd, and I'll catch you all in another video. Later, nerds.